Hey, this is Dave Brown, River Valley Leader. With us is Representative Tom Cotton here from Arkansas. Thank you for taking a minute and talking with us.
Yeah, Dave, it's great to be with you.
I have a couple of questions for you. The first one that's on my mind concerns the trade that we did, 5 terrorists for Bo Bergdahl. And I know as a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, combat veteran, you've got some thoughts on the matter. What are you thinking about that?
I think this trade was terrible for our national security, and it's going to put American lives at risk. Somewhere in Afghanistan tonight, there's an Arkansan pulling guard at a remote outpost, and his life is now at greater risk because President Obama made this grievous mistake. First, I would never trade 5 senior Taliban commanders. These are not trigger pullers or couriers. These are people who would have been their equivalent of a Secretary of Defense. They're already back in the fight through the use of couriers and other cutouts in Qatar, where they're currently being held. Second, the President didn't level with the American people about the circumstances of Bo Bergdahl's disappearance. I was in Afghanistan when he disappeared. It was widely known among troops on the ground right away that he had walked off his post. Most likely, given all the facts we know, he deserted. That's a question, though, for a court-martial, and the President didn't make any of those facts known to the American people when he announced this decision. Third, perhaps most appalling, since he announced the decision, anonymous White House staffers have been criticizing the soldiers who served with Bo Bergdahl, who were actually in his squad or in his platoon, for coming out and speaking the truth, since the President did not. And I find that particularly appalling that White House staffers who have spent the last 10 years in the comforts of Washington, D.C. would criticize the very men and women who are overseas defending their freedoms.
Absolutely, and anonymously.
Anonymously.
Lacking the courage of their convictions. In a similar vein, there's been a huge scandal at the VA with veterans unable to access health care. Now, you have worked to do something about that with the Access to Care Act. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, the VA needs to be focused on getting veterans the care and the benefits that they deserve and that they work throughout their career to earn. These are things that were promised to veterans when they enlisted. And Barack Obama knew of these problems in 2008. He said that he would make it a priority, and he clearly has not. So the departure of Eric Shinseki, which I called for, is a good first step, but it won't help veterans get the care they need. That's why in the House of Representatives we've passed bipartisan legislation like the Veterans Access to Care Act or the VA Management Accountability Act, which allows senior managers at the VA to hold the large number of middle managers accountable, even fire them for poor performance, as opposed to giving them bonuses or rating them all as successful, which the VA has been doing. It also allows veterans to seek care in their own communities rather than having to drive 100 miles to the nearest VA facility. Now, if a veteran wants to go to that veterans hospital, or if they have a particular expertise, they can still do that. But here in, say, Russellville, Arkansas, a veteran who could go to the local hospital or see a local physician shouldn't have to wait 2 or 3 or 4 months to get care at a hospital that's 70 miles away when they've got good local health care in their own communities.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
And now this is making a change in topic just a little bit, but recently economists have determined that our GDP dropped by almost 3%, 2.9%. And many of them are pointing, frankly, to Obamacare as one of the pivotal reasons for that happening. And you're a Senate hopeful. If you're able to get into the Senate, what do you hope to do to help turn the economy around?
Yeah, the economy shrunk by almost 3% in the first quarter of 2014. And more than a statistic, that's a tragedy for Arkansas's working families. It means more people are out of work, or they're struggling to find work, or their hours are being cut back. It means that they're facing higher prices for gasoline or for food or for electricity. And a lot of these problems are caused by our federal government. Obamacare is a great example. It's not surprising that in the first quarter of the year in which Obamacare went into effect, our economy contracted. You have higher taxes, more spending, and more regulations. And that's the last thing that working families in Arkansas need as they're trying to get to work and provide for themselves and their kids and maybe aging parents as well. So in the United States Senate, we're going to work to start over on health care reform, to empower patients and doctors to make decisions for themselves rather than bureaucrats in Washington. We also have to cut our taxes and get spending under control. We don't need to keep spending more and more money that should be staying right here in Arkansas so families and communities can be making their own choices for themselves. That's the way we get long-lasting economic growth and provide real job opportunities for all Arkansans.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. It's great to be here.